Shifting focus to Afghanistan, where the situation is only becoming more and more grim. The government, our government, has now appealed to Indian citizens living in Afghanistan to return home, to evacuate. In fact, it started off with those in Mazar-e-Sharif, where even a plane has been sent across to get the people back home. A special flight has been arranged for Indians to come back home. But after this, an overarching advisory was also issued by the government, strongly advising people to evacuate and get to safer places. This is in the middle of the fact that day after day, the Taliban is only growing in strength and capturing one city after the another, one region after the other in Afghanistan. And so, what is happening in our neighborhood has become of extreme importance to our country. Right in our backyard, widespread violence is taking place as the government and the Afghani government and their security forces put up a battle with the Talibani terrorists, a battle that they are very quickly losing with large number of casualties. And while, yes, everybody did expect much turmoil as US began to withdraw its forces, perhaps the speed at which it has happened has also left many surprised. What does it mean for us? What's going on? And what should our strategy be? Let's say good evening to the panelists joining me right now. Sushant Sareen, Foreign Affairs expert, a senior fellow at the ORF. Aman Sinha, former ambassador to Afghanistan. Aarti Tikku, Foreign and Strategic Affairs editor at IANS. And Dr. Wail Awad, senior journalist, Western Asia expert, joining me right now. Dr. Awad, if I can start off with you, the pace at which this has unfolded, was this expected, that the Taliban would come back with such great force and the other side would have very little to defend with?
Absolutely. Good evening to you and your panelists. Actually, was expected the moment the United States have signed the agreement with the Taliban in February last year, and they were deciding that they have wanted to pull their troops out of Afghanistan. So the United States have really given Afghanistan into a golden platter to the Taliban, because the moment they have left, we can see now that 6-7 provinces within a shorter span of a very short time has fallen in the hand of the Taliban. It's a clear indication they were prepared to fill up the security vacuum that the United States and NATO forces have left behind. Having said that, I would say also that the Taliban never stopped the war in Afghanistan. In fact, it was continuous war, and they have been regularly attacking civilian, attacking even the government forces, attacking the foreign forces in Afghanistan. But when the United States felt that they're fed up with the situation there, and they thought that this is the time they should move out, then the Taliban have taken the full advantage, and you can see the strategy they have been following in Afghanistan, which goes by capturing province after province, especially the crossing corridors to the neighboring country, Uzbekistan or Tajikistan, Iran, Pakistan. All these areas have been now encircled and have been under the total control of the Taliban, which also makes it more dangerous that we are heading for a civil war in Afghanistan, and uncertainty will prevail in the coming days.
Uncertainty as the country is headed for a civil war. What does it mean, Sushant Sareen, for India?
No, I'm surprised Dr. Awad says that there will be a civil war. The civil war is already unfolding. It's in front of our eyes. What else is a civil war? And I think it's extremely unfortunate what is happening in Afghanistan. But see, what it means for us is, twofold. There are two issues that are really going to, apart from what happens in Afghanistan and all of that, I think one is going to be a direct impact. Afghanistan, whenever there's instability in Afghanistan, it invariably reaches the borders of India and beyond. So one is that, and the fact that Afghanistan is 100%, I'm not even 99%, I'm 100% sure it's going to become a terror central once again. All sorts of despicable elements from all over the world are going to make a beeline. They're already there. They're already fighting the war, the Tajiks, the Uzbeks, the Uyghurs, the Pakistanis, some people from Iran, some people from the Arab world. A lot of these characters are already there. They're part and parcel of the Taliban, and they're already fighting out there. So this is going to become a terror central once again, regardless of whatever nonsense the Taliban have been feeding to the Americans and everybody else. And once it becomes terror central, because the Pakistanis are behind them, the Pakistanis will have some degree of plausible deniability. They will shift many of the terrorists who are currently in Pakistan into Afghanistan and then transport them into India. So one is that impact. The second impact is going to be that just like when the ISIS erupted on the scene, jihadists from around the world were very enthused. I think a Taliban victory in Afghanistan is also going to enthuse the jihadists, especially since another superpower has been defeated in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan will become a magnet for all these guys. And many of these jihadists, including in India, many of them who are under the wraps right now, are likely to become a lot more active going forward. And I'm not just talking about Jammu and Kashmir, I'm talking about other parts of India as well. So I think there is that psychological impact, which is also going to impact on us. Other than that, of course, is what happens in Afghanistan, what our position is going to be in Afghanistan or not going to be in Afghanistan. But I don't any better person than Ambassador Sinha to talk about that.
In fact, Ambassador Sinha, let me bring you in then. What should our position be? There's a big debate going on whether a democracy like ours and a government like ours should engage with Taliban, as they seem to be becoming now very clearly the force which is in control.
Well, that question of engaging with Taliban, any engagement is not a one-way street. I don't know whether Taliban is willing to engage with you or with anybody else. In fact, after the Doha deal, they have clearly shown that they are in no mood to engage with anyone. All the promises they gave about peace negotiations are just that. They were pulling wool over the eyes. Their intention was a military victory, and I think they are already working to a plan. And they had pre-planned. You see, the announcement of President Biden in April coincided with the usual spring offensive. So they were all set to start their offensive on 1st of May, which was the original deadline for the American troop withdrawal. And obviously, Afghan government has been caught completely flat-footed, and that's what we see. Sareen has already talked about the implications. You see, one is, of course, it will become a pariah state. So a lot of our policies and policies of the rest of the world will depend on what sort of attitude we have towards a Taliban-controlled regime. The second impact would be, once it becomes a terror central, the stock of Pakistan, ISI, among the jihadi elements around the world, including in our region, will go skyrocketing. That they will be seen as a credible backer at considerable cost to themselves of such groups. And that, I think, will create its own problem, both for us and for the region.
Yes, and I think sooner for us and this region than for the rest of the world. And Aarti, which is why for us it will be important to be on our toes, have series of plans and options in place. It's only when a larger explosion of some kind of terrorism takes place that the West is even going to react. They don't care anymore about Afghanistan. Their job is done. They're out, and they're looking the other way. But for India, the situation is going to be very different.
No, absolutely. It will be immediate.
Ambassador, if I can just take that question to Aarti Tikku. Yes.
Sure.
Look, we need to understand the situation in Afghanistan from two perspectives. One perspective is definitely the larger global geopolitics, wherein Taliban, which has already experienced the triumph of not only defeating the Soviet Union, driving them out from Afghanistan in 1990, but also becoming also a catalyst for the disintegration of Soviet Union. So there was a sense of triumphalism already with Taliban, and with the emergence of Al-Qaeda, with the emergence of pan-Islamism, which spread not just in South Asia, but spread across the world after September 11 and even before September 11. So that is one. Now, after having defeated Soviet Union, which was the biggest empire of its own time in 89-90, Taliban has again defeated America, which again, I would say after the end of the Cold War ended between Soviet Union and the US emerged as the biggest superpower. But Taliban again has arrived at a point where they feel triumphant that they have defeated another superpower. I think Sushant also mentioned it. But it's important to emphasize this point because what does Taliban really take away from this situation in Afghanistan? It from its perspective, Taliban is undefeatable. From its perspective, Taliban can be a force multiplier for all the pan-Islamist forces, not just in Afghanistan and Pakistan, but also across the world. Third, Taliban probably would be seeing itself as a successor and also seeing itself in the shoes of the, you can say, Ottoman Empire, because they now feel that, they could be a key player in reviving the whole caliphate, the whole idea of caliphate, the whole idea of Muslim brotherhood, also the idea of having the larger Muslim ummah. So that is why you see that Taliban is playing a very, very different role than what it was playing in 1990s. Today, it is having some kind of negotiations with China. It's talking to Turkey. It's also, it is a proxy of Pakistan security establishment and ISI. But it's playing multi-pronged strategy, which goes to show that Taliban in the last 30 years really has become a way bigger force than it was before 1990. So that is one. The second is that many of the panelists said that it's going to be a problem for India. But I think what more than anything else, we need to understand that it is also giving a sense of triumph to the Pakistani security establishment, because for them, Taliban has always been an asset, a strategic asset. Taliban has also been the key vehicle with which they have secured their strategic assets and strategic interests in Afghanistan. So in a way, Pakistan feels even more empowered. Pakistan feels that it has a better strategic value and significance than what it had, say, 5 years ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago, because it can now sell the same formula, the same template with which it became an important ally of the US after September 11 and even before September 11. And this whole pressure that Pakistan was facing because of India's insistence at the international level with international community, pushing the international community to reprimand and punish Pakistan in the last few years. I think that is the key issue, because Pakistan now can again sell itself with a certain strategic importance to the West, even though America has left, even though America now has in fact sold this idea that they have withdrawn from Afghanistan. But really, Afghanistan is something that will concern not just China because of their own problem with Uyghurs in Xinjiang province, and America will not really completely distance itself from Afghanistan, because China is right here, and if the Taliban has a certain negotiation and a certain arrangement and a certain deal with China, then America inevitably becomes a party and will become a player yet again.
Okay.
So I think Taliban has really figured out their own importance, and they have also figured out how to play both China and America. And in this larger picture, I would say Pakistan has figured out how to play both China and America.
So you've made points about two crucial aspects. Let's just break it down. And on the first aspect, I actually want to go back, to Dr. Weil and Dr. Weil. I wanted to ask you this question about Taliban coming back with such strength. 2 decades of American forces being there, and they didn't manage to break it down completely or get rid of it. It's back and back stronger, perhaps, as Aarti says, than what they were in the 90s, and now behaving as an organized entity that governments can engage with. How does that happen? How has that happened?
Well, I would be naive to believe that the United States have gone to Afghanistan to defeat the Taliban or to build up a nation. That's what even President Biden said. We are not there to build up a nation. So therefore, they have gone for one reason, that they wanted to defeat the Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden, and they left it in an anarchy after 20 years. Now, what the Americans have been doing, we have to understand the American objective and strategy in the region. It is a failed state. It's a raw state. Whenever the Americans go, they create the mess, the chaos, and then they invite the neighbors to find a solution and call the international community and UN Security Council to play their role. So therefore, we need to understand the objective. What sort of an agreement that the United States had with the Taliban, nobody knows till now. We're just vague. We don't know. We're just following what the American now, if we look at the American B-52 or we look at the American attacking the Taliban position, it's a clear indication also that the United States think that the Taliban has violated the agreement they have reached with them, which have not been revealed to all of us, which we will come to know. But I just wanted to come before I answer you. My question is a very important question. I strongly echo what my friend Sushant have said. I didn't call it a civil war at this moment. It is a civil war, but it's not that in a full swing. We are witnessing a balkanization of Afghanistan. And Taliban, when they were kicked by the American and they have pushed out, they were pushed into Pakistan territories. And they were at the border with Pakistan. They were trained with Tehrik-e-Taliban in Pakistan. They were already rearmed, regrouped themselves, and continue to come back full armed and swing and trained. So therefore, they have not really dealt with the issues which you people have been talking about. So Taliban going to create not only a problem for Pakistan as well, not only for Afghanistan. So we have to understand the game plan of bringing back the warlords of the 90s and bringing Afghanistan issue back into the forefront for the great power game plan in Afghanistan. So Taliban is just as a proxy, just a ploy being used by different forces. Why the Taliban has to take over? It's the Pashtun majorities, but what they have been doing to improve their image, if you notice, they're trying to take one province after the other, looking at the local warlords, settling a deal with them, non-Pashtun leader, just to tell them that you administer the area till they have full control. But you never trust a hardcore Salafi Wahhabi group. That is the message people have to understand. So it is a vital territory now to make it a hub into terrorist organization, because there are many stakeholders, there are many actors, and I don't think 20 years of American occupation of Afghanistan have left it in this array, have not even had its own group. Look at the UN Human Rights Group, watch and see what sort of violation have been carried out by the local government, by the Taliban, by the American troops. Everybody has been killing the Afghani people. And I think the Afghani people are paying the price in the time of peace and in the time of war. So Taliban is trying to take a full advantage of a weak government, of a malpractice, of a proxy war being fought in Afghanistan. And I'm sure Afghanistan future will be more into disintegration rather than or not even having one Afghanistan.
Well, I completely agree with you. I mean, at the end of the people, it's at the end of the day, for decades now, it's been the Afghani people who've had to bear the brunt of all that has happened in that country. And it's, just for such a long period of time, it's just simply been war-torn. It's really heartbreaking. And it just seems that here on is going to get worse. Completely out of time, but it's been a very insightful conversation, however short it was. Thank you to all four of you for joining me. But I think we will have a lot more of these as situation becomes worse and Taliban grows stronger in Afghanistan. For now, the Indian government has put out an advisory asking people, Indians, to evacuate from there. Already, a couple of weeks ago, we shut a couple of our own embassies and consulates there. And now more and more withdrawal is taking place for the safety of Indians in Afghanistan. How does the government tackle this at an international level remains to be seen. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.